Hi everybody, we're here today with Susan. Susan, what is your title?
I am the MLA for Dartmouth North and the NDP spokesperson for community services, among other departments.
Can you tell me a little bit about Dartmouth North? I know Dartmouth North has a high poverty rate. What are you seeing from the people in the community?
Yeah, you're very right. There is a high level of poverty in Dartmouth North. We have a huge amount of the population of the riding that lives in rental apartments. We have a high level of food insecurity in Dartmouth North. We have very limited medical services, health services in Dartmouth North. But currently, I would say the big issues that people bring to my office are around housing inaffordability, lack of affordable housing, rent evictions or rent evictions, and the inability to pay power. So we call that energy poverty.
That makes a lot of sense. So individuals, they're not able to afford their homes, they're not able to afford the power, they're not able to put food on their tables.
Yep.
So obviously they're struggling with other issues such as menstrual products. Can you
Yep.
touch a little bit on period poverty?
Yeah, sure. So, for me, I buy my menstrual products when I buy my groceries, right? So, or go to the drugstore for another reason. It's part of your monthly bills, your monthly expenses. And so when you don't have enough money to pay for your groceries or pay for your regular expenses, also your power, also your rent, you just don't have the things you need. So usually when I'm seeing this kind of level of poverty, people are making hard choices. So generally people pay their rent first, their power next, or their heat, their utilities, and then they have whatever they have left over they use for food and other expenses. We know that menstrual products aren't cheap, it's just another amount of money that people are spending on something that they don't have the money for.
That's right. Now, can you tell me a little bit about a recent bill that was just introduced recently about period poverty?
Yep, so our bill basically would require all places of employment or all employers to provide menstrual products for their employees. So in the same way that if you go to work, you have the right to go to a bathroom that has toilet paper and soap and paper towel to dry your hands, wash your hands, dry your hands, you would also be able to access menstrual products in the bathroom at your place of work.
I want to touch a little bit on that because there's two things when we talk about period poverty. One is period poverty itself, and then the bill that the NDP just introduced would be universal access.
That's right.
Because both play a big part with each other, but one doesn't solve the other. So, for example, universal access, it's great to have it in all the bathrooms, and an individual that is struggling when they go to work or go to school, then they can use it then. But if the building is closed on weekends, or for example, if the school is closed for the summer, where do they get the products then? So we need to tackle period poverty a little more aggressively. Do you have any ideas, any suggestions on how we can tackle? Because the big thing is there's a bill that the Conservatives introduced, which is Bill 126, would be additional funding for individuals on assistance, and then we're putting them in the bathrooms. But we're still not really tackling the middle class. How do we, because we have a lot of people that are struggling, the working poor we call them. So how do we address that? How do we get to them?
Yeah, so I think, period poverty is poverty, right? And so we need to address issues of poverty. And poverty is caused because we don't have enough money, so income inadequacy. So, we can address things like the low minimum wage we have in this province. So we could have a $15 minimum wage like other provinces are bringing in, or even higher, a living wage. Let's shoot for a living wage. We can increase, obviously, for the people who are on disability or social assistance, we can increase those rates in a meaningful way. And we hear the Minister of Community Services talk about how the new standard household rate that's coming with transformation is going to transform everyone's lives. Well, we know that that's simply not true. The highest increase for someone, the highest increase possible for someone on income assistance will be 5%, which is frankly not enough. So we need to address that. We need to increase rates to a meaningful level where people can actually pay for everything that they need. The other thing we can do is bring in other universal services. So for many people in my constituency, for instance, who are living with low incomes, they might not be in the lowest income bracket, and this is something that I experienced until I was working as an MLA, is that people who are living kind of on the brink of affordability, things like universal daycare. I was paying $1,600 a month in daycare fees, which basically essentially wiped out my, why was I working? I was basically making the money that I was paying in daycare.
Yeah, it makes no sense, right?
Yeah, so we could provide universal daycare or increase the subsidies to daycares in a way that everyone can access them. We could also provide free community college training. There's all kinds of ways to address inadequate income. We can provide services in a universal way, and also bring up the income levels.
Exactly, and I want to touch on one last thing, because we did speak about housing at the beginning. Rent is like one of our biggest bills. Rent caps. If we could do rent control, what do you think? What do you think about that?
Listen, it was the first bill I ever introduced after being an MLA. On the doorsteps in Dartmouth North, I heard consistently that people could not afford their rents, and they could not afford their rent increases. And I said if I was elected, that would be what I championed. It was the first bill that I introduced in the House. It was a bill to limit rent to control rental increases. I believe it's called the Rental Fairness Act. And then my colleague Lisa Roberts reintroduced it in the second session, and it's on the order paper. We've debated it, and it's, to me, it is an extremely necessary bill, and it's totally doable. Wouldn't cost the government any money, but it would make a huge difference in the lives of people who rent.
It definitely would. So where is it? Has it had a second? It had a second reading?
It has a second reading that we called, but we did that on an opposition day. So the rules of the House mean that if we call second reading on something, it doesn't go to vote to go to the next level. So the government would have to basically say, we are calling this bill, we want this bill to pass, and they would call it for second reading. But
so it's basically a waiting game right now to see if they'll do that.
Yeah, but I would listen, anything can happen, but I would say it's pretty safe to say that the current government will not call that bill.
Exactly. Okay, I want to thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we'll see you at the periods.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Thank you.